Hello, friends, and welcome to Page Chewing. We're here today with Holly Tinsley and Alex Bradshaw, and we're trying to decide on the title. We're tossing around the idea of calling it Spotlight Chewing, but we'll make it official when we later on when we discuss it. But Holly, will you give us an introduction?
I will certainly do my best. I will admit I am quite nervous about this because I've never done a podcast where I have to take the helm before. So, is this a wise decision you've made, Steve? We will find out. But, yes, introductions. So, the last couple of weeks over on the Page Chewing forums, myself and Steve, we've been having a couple of conversations back and forth. And for probably the last 12 months, I've been getting increasingly involved with the forums, spending a bit of time on there, getting to know people. I've started running I say monthly, it's probably about 2 or 3 times a month D&D session with some of the people on the forum who have become regular players. And it's just been a really nice experience to get to know everyone there, to kind of get to know Steve a bit more. One of the things we talked about was potentially doing a bit of a series. So this is our first attempt to see where it will go. And the idea is that we will talk about the projects, books, TV shows, YouTubers, all of the cool things that we can find on the internet that maybe don't get talked about enough, put a bit of a spotlight on them, give them a bit of a bump, and hopefully get them some more likes, followers, and a bit of attention. So that's the plan. We'll see where it goes.
That's the plan. Yeah, I think it's a real, and we kind of went back and forth. I think it's a really great idea because it makes a big difference just to shout people out who are doing a great job or just getting started or whatever it may be. But Alex, will you give us an introduction too, please?
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm Alex S. Bradshaw on the front of the book. So I've written a couple of books, Norse-inspired fantasy novels, are standalone. One's called Windborn, one's called Trollgrave. I've been sort of bouncing around the scene for a few years, and like as you say, like shining that spotlight is something that I think is something that the indie scene especially is really good at. You know, it's all just lifting up everybody and everyone gets really excited about everybody's projects. There's never a sense of competition. It's always like if you've written a good book, then I get to read a good book. So that's great. I just really like that. So it's nice to have the opportunity to start lift things on this podcast as well. So yeah. And thank you for having me, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and we noticed a big dice in your background.
yeah. Well, that's why I was like, I'll make sure it looks like I'm as nerdy as possible in the background. I've got the big dice lamp, I've got the sword and stuff, and I've got the book, so it's all fantasy related.
This is all good because I feel like we're naturally going to digress into probably quite a lot of D&D chat at some point in this. So I feel like we're well prepared.
Yeah, exactly. It's all my prep is all of that.
It is. It's. And we've talked a little bit about. Well, I've been hesitant to join the groups because I know next to nothing about D&D. So I don't want to be the person to come in and be asking 1,000 questions. So I've been a little hesitant to join.
I think that's almost the best position to be in if you don't know that much about D&D. Like I was running a game last week, a couple of weeks, and one of the players is hasn't played for a little while, so she wasn't 100% sure on the rules. I was like, doesn't matter, just tell me what you want to do. I'll tell you if you need to roll the dice for it, and then we'll just make it work. And thankfully, most of the things she wanted to do was hit things with axes and swords and stuff. So that was nice and easy. But you're not hemmed in. If you don't know what you can and can't do, you can always just try everything.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think one of the things that really puts people off from trying it is this idea that you need to know the rules of the game. And the thing is, there's so many rules. I've been playing for 6 years now, and I still don't know probably more than 20% of the rules. So I'm constantly looking through the books and on the apps. And I think what is great is that for people, like yourself, who might be a bit apprehensive about it, is there are more people coming out and creating those spaces where it's a safe, welcoming place to give it a go. Prime example here is, I know, Alex, you've done a couple of videos on YouTube kind of giving instruction on how to make a character sheet. And it's just great to see more people, there's less of the gatekeeping that I think people were always so afraid of, and it's becoming much more of an open community.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as well with there's a lot of resources, like you said, there's a lot of stuff out there and things you can watch that will get you excited to play, but also kind of nervous. Like if you watch stuff like Critical Role or the big kind of productions, and people are like, well, I'm not sure if I could go that deep into a character. It's like it's fine, just you don't have to like put a voice on and do all that stuff. You can just say my person looks very uncomfortable and shuffles out the room. You don't have to put on a Scottish accent because you're playing a dwarf or anything like that. So yeah, and I think ironically, making a character in Dungeons and Dragons is almost like one of the more complicated parts, and that just happens to be one of the first things you might come across. So, as everyone's really welcoming. So, if you were me coming to a game, I would volunteer to potentially make one for you. Just say like, what do you want to do, and then you could ask your person who's running it to do that. And there's loads of pre-generated characters as well, so you could just pull one out and say, I'd like to do this for a bit, and then once you understand a bit more about how it all works together. I feel like I'm pitching you a space on a table that, at this point. But,
I've been trying this for months now.
good, yeah. Well, I'll just push him a bit more.
Yeah, I picked up I read up a little bit about the rules and the different editions, and it's like, this big thick rule book, and I thought, well, I'll read that and kind of get an idea, and it's like, this is a lot. There's a lot involved. So a little intimidating, but I think, like you said, even other games that I play, like Magic: The Gathering, if you read that rule book, I'm sure it's triple the size of D&D, and it's just you just have to jump in and kind of be confused for forever.
Yeah, exactly. You just need to make sure that your dungeon master, whoever it is just like you just say, I'd like to do this, and they say, great, this is what you need to do, or just roll with it. So I think literally, or not, or figuratively, everyone wants to just have a good adventure and tell a good story. So
I do think that it has become a lot easier now with things like Roll20, which is the platform we use for the dice chewing games, because so much of what you need is already automated for you, like the rolls and the damage. So even if there's something you don't quite know how it works, as long as you know the basic premise of, this is a weapon or this is a spell, you don't need to know all the ins and outs of it because it will do that for you. You can just focus on the story and having a good time with the character. That's opened it up, I think, to a lot of people.
Definitely. And Dungeons and Dragons is a big one, but there are also other, role-playing games are available, which may be more or less complicated in the rule set. Some of them are a bit more streamlined and narrative based, and some can be more have more rules and be even more crunchy, as they call it. But I think D&D is just the biggest one, so it's probably the easiest one to find a table at, and it's relatively streamlined.
And it surprises me how much D&D influences fantasy authors and fantasy worlds and world building and character building. Is that something that's influenced both of you?
I think it's being aware of the different sort of Dungeons and Dragons and other kind of role-playing games and stuff has made me more conscious of like expectations of the kind of adventure that you're on, whether that's one that you want to write or play as. Like Dungeons and Dragons is very heroic fantasy. You're casting lots of spells, and there are myriad races that aren't human and things like that. So and there's, for example, I'm playing a different game with some friends called Dragonbane at the moment because we're sort of pausing on Dungeons and Dragons. We're playing Dragonbane, and I have tried so hard to kill my players in Dungeons and Dragons, and I cannot do it. And in Dragonbane, it took me about 20 minutes. I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry, guys, you're going to die. And I think it's just that in, being aware of the expectations of what kind of story you're going in for, I think has just made me aware of it. And there, occasionally you might read a book or a series, especially, where you go into it thinking it's going to be one thing and it sort of devolves. Like you might think it's going to be this big fantasy adventure with lots of action, and then eventually it almost, or the writer gets caught up in all the politics of it, and then you kind of lose your enthusiasm for it. So I think it's looking at the different role-play systems has made me a lot more conscious of that, I think. And
And for even something like you mentioned character sheets, do you use something similar for your own characters when you create characters? Do you kind of have that in your mind and kind of like how you fill in your characters, how you kind of make them real, I guess?
Okay, so I actually think this would be a really good question for Alex to answer as well, is what's the best character that you've ever created? Because I find that creating a good character mechanically and creating a good character storytelling wise are two very different things, and people always have their preferences. So I know players who will build the most kick-ass characters who are just martial experts in everything, and they could just kill things with like 2 strikes of a sword. But it's not so much about the story. For me, it's all about the story. So I will create characters that are terrible at everything because I just love to embrace the chaos of it. So my favourite character that I ever created was a wizard who was allergic to magic. And as you can imagine, that went really, really well. All the other players in the campaign absolutely loved it because he was completely and utterly useless in every scenario. But it made for such great, fun storytelling. We were literally in stitches throughout the whole session that we played first time out. And I just love that creativity where you can just be something so ridiculous, you know, and you can really kind of embrace, you know, if you want to be silly, be silly. If you want to be kick-ass, be kick-ass. If you want to be feisty, be feisty. You know, it's a good opportunity to live your best fantasy life.
Yeah, definitely. And I quite like, I mostly run games rather than play them, but I think it's that I do like to have a bit of a story element, but I did mostly play the one-shot stuff. So I don't know what a favorite character would be necessarily, but I definitely try and start with a concept rather than a, mechanical benefit. Like I played a necromancer wizard who briefly, and she was trying to kind of, use this necromancy magic to kind of, I think, resurrect her wife. I can't remember at the time, but in the setting, necromancy was very frowned upon. I mean, I suppose it is in most settings, really. But yeah, that was kind of a bit of a dichotomy in that I was very careful about what spells I was casting in front of everybody else, because I didn't suddenly want to be like, oh no, I'm just going to animate this guy. Oh no, I know it's super illegal. Just like pretend I didn't do it. So I was very, very cautious with that. So I think, similar to you, really, Holly. Is maybe that's us as writers, really. The story comes first. And just trying to find those interesting connections, or with mechanical benefits as well. I would still want to play the game. I still want to have the turtle monk who's got a very high armor class, but is sort of slow and plodding, but a bit of a knight character. That was quite fun as well. Sort of the teenage mutant, not ninja turtle, like crusader turtle instead, I guess.
So sort of while we're on the subject of D&D, because I feel like this is a rabbit hole that we could go down for a good couple of hours here, getting back to the idea of putting the spotlight on things, Alex, you mentioned the big one for D&D, and that is Critical Role. So most people who play in D&D will be aware of Critical Role. It's amazing. I'm a super fan. Not going to lie about that. However, Alex, you were completely right. I think a lot of people, they see something like that and they think that that's how they have to play, and it is very intimidating because obviously they're professional voice actors. They've been playing for decades. They know what they're doing. So I maybe wanted to chat a little bit about some of the less intimidating YouTubers, videos, series that people can watch to try and get them into a bit of D&D. So have you guys ever heard of Tales from a Stinky Dragon?
No.
No, not really. I think you might have mentioned it the other day, and I was like, okay, that sounds like a very interesting title for a podcast.
This is perfect because this is what we're here to do. We're here to talk about things no one's ever heard of. So Tales from a Stinky Dragon is a D&D comedy podcast. It runs on Spotify. I believe they're on their second season now. Sadly, the production company that they work through actually, they kind of shut down, I think, a few days ago. So it's a little bit up in the air about whether they're going to continue or how. But the first season is all there. It's on YouTube, and it's a very different vibe to Critical Role. So this is purely comedy. So what they do is they really lean into the tropes of Dungeons and Dragons, and they do it with a really light, humorous touch. The videos on YouTube are absolutely hilarious. They are like low budget animation. I think there's like some claymation going on. There's some puppetry going on, but it's a really light-hearted way to kind of introduce yourself to the game. And because they do play it as the game as opposed to like a story, they are actually going through and talking about the roles that they're making, what they're trying to achieve. So it's a pretty good way to get an idea of how things work. So I would recommend giving that one a go if people haven't heard of it. They have got about 500,000 followers, I think, on YouTube, so they're not exactly unheard of, but obviously not many people have been talking about them. But yeah, so that's one that I found. Alex, what about you? Is there any you kind of follow or know of?
Well, yeah, and I think not that it's competition of nicheness, but I think he's only got about 30,000 followers on YouTube, which is, as a side note, I always find it crazy. Like, you know, they've got like 500,000 followers, and yet you can take 2 steps away in the internet like community, and then people have never heard of them. It's just wonderful how people find their community, I think, and then there's still people who you can discover it with. Anyway, the chap I was going to talk about is a guy called Trevor Devall, and he's a voice actor as well, but he plays solo, and his channel's called Me, Myself, and Die. So he just plays on his own. The production value is quite high, but yeah, he's just playing on his own, and it's various different systems. I don't think he's actually done Dungeons and Dragons. He did one called Savage Worlds, another one called Dominion. He's got like seasons, and they're sort of like 45 minutes to an hour for each episode, and there's sort of 20 episodes a season. So it's also, I think, less intimidating than if you were like staring down the barrel of 2 seasons of 100 episodes of 4-hour episodes of Critical Role. But he's just got this, like, he's got a great energy. He still does a little bit of the acting, but like not loads, and he sort of talks you through stuff, and I found it just really nice to watch. And yeah, he's got, as I say, great energy, and also on a different perspective, because he doesn't do Dungeons and Dragons, it's nice to find some different systems that are maybe a bit more narrative than rules based. And he's been role playing for like 40 years, so it's also really interesting to watch the other content that he's got, because he's just got this just vault of knowledge. And yeah, his latest season he started recently, he's on like episode 5 at the moment. He's running a system that he's making as well, so it's sort of interesting to see his thought process. And he's very open about, okay, well, I did this last time, but I've changed the rules since then, so we're not going to do that again. So yeah, I would highly recommend giving that one a go. I won't like start talking about the intricacies of the new system. I was like, well, this is really interesting, I find, but I'll go and check him out. I think he's also very good.
Does that tempt you at all, Steve?
Yes, it does. I'm writing everything down.
Another one just to shout out as well, just because it feels pertinent at this time to mention it, is the Shropshire DM. So obviously I'm a Shropshire-based author, so I know many of the D&D people in the area, and Joel Smith, he is known as a Shropshire DM. He's got a channel on Twitch, which, if we're going down in the Twitch subscriber numbers, I think he's probably got about 500 subscribers, so not too many at the minute. However, he is one of these people where if you go into a games cafe anywhere within 50 miles of here and you say the name Joel Smith, everyone knows who he is. Really friendly guy, really affable, really charming, absolutely up for helping out new people. There's a lot of content on his Twitch channel that explains how games work. He goes out to events, he works with schools and youth groups, things like that. He also happens to be the MC for the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Spotlight in Shrewsbury, which is the event that we are holding, which Alex is going to be coming along and being a sort of co-host for. So I thought give him a little shout out as well while we're here.
Nice. So I guess that's a great segue to talk about the events.
Yeah, so exciting times going on. There's been a lot of work this week in my house. Myself and my husband are holding a writing and book event in a board game cafe local to us. And we don't really know how we got to this point, because similarly to when I did the Kickstarter project for the Anatomy of Fear, I had an idea and I thought, I don't really know if anyone's going to go for this. I might just put it out there, float the idea and see what happens. And I think we're 3 weeks in now and we have a full roster of authors, writers, panels, a host, a venue. It's just been absolutely insane. And I'm honestly so happy with the reaction from the writing community, because the minute I mentioned that this was a project we were looking to do, I had so many messages, not from people saying, can I come and talk about my book? can I come and plug my work, but from people saying, can I help? How can I get involved? What can I do to boost this? The first thought was, how can we make this event a success for the community, which, is amazing. And obviously reached out to a couple of people, reached out to Alex, who has kindly jumped on board and is going to be hosting one of our panels. And yeah, it's so far looking like it should be a really good day.
Yeah, it looks really exciting so far. I'm so pleased that excited to be involved and give Joel a break from emceeing for a bit and hosting and doing some of the panels. It's again, like what you're just saying about people reaching out, not even just not necessarily to join in and plug their books, but just to help. It's I think this is one of those, another example of just the indie community and the fantasy and sci-fi community is just so friendly, and everyone wants everyone to do super well, and it's just very exciting to get all these people these authors who are coming on the panels, like people I've tweeted at and been tweeted at, or known them online for a little bit and have been admirers of their work for a long time. So it's really exciting to be in the same room as them, and invited into the same room as them as well, rather than just happening to wander into Waterstones or something where they're there. It always feels a little bit creepy when that happens. Super excited, basically.
So you mentioned the panels. Do you have specific topics for each panel, or what are the plans? Or is that still in development for the different panels?
We've got pretty much our final roster of panels and workshops and interviews now. We are going live with our website tomorrow, which is very exciting because we've been building that all week. We're just waiting for the last few final pieces of info to come in. But at the moment, we have a really good mix of panels. So we have one called Making the Magic Happen, which is going to be looking at how writers build magic systems and magic lore into their writing. We've got one that's going to be focusing on lit RPG and kind of the intersection between gaming and writing, because obviously being a board game cafe, there's going to be quite a large gamer crowd there, we're assuming. And we've got a Discovering Your Next Great Read panel, which will be talking about not only how you can find great books, but also the communities within the writing world. So forums like Page Chewing and the writing community on Twitter, BookTube, that kind of thing. Just trying to, again, put a bit of a spotlight on them, because it can be a little bit confusing when you first try to enter the writing sphere. Everyone knows if you want a book, you can go to Amazon, you can go to Barnes & Noble. People don't necessarily know about the indie bookshop down the road, and that's what we really want to try and highlight to them, is that the world of books is far bigger than people probably realise it is. And we've been really lucky. We've got some amazing speakers. So we've got Emily Inkpen is coming down. We've got Stephen Arian, Phil Parker, Tim Hardy, Keith Allen Birds, Simon Kewen. I'm trying to remember all the names on the list now. Lucy Connolly. Obviously, Alex will be there. We've got Steve McKinnon's coming down. See, this is what happens when people give me a list of names. I forget. But yeah.
Did you say Emma L. Adams is coming? Did you say?
Emma L. Adams is coming. Shout out to her as well, because she actually launched her Kickstarter for her third book in her series. I think it was yesterday, and she's already hit target and surpassed it. I think she hit target within half an hour. So big well done to Emma. That's amazing. I think that's it. Was that everyone?
I think so. The names went past me in a bit of a blur, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. I should have been checking them off when you were reading them out.
If we missed someone, we apologise. But everyone who's there is absolutely amazing. And yeah, it's a really exciting time. I think people are just going to enjoy discovering some good books, discovering some good people, talking about writing. And I've already had a few messages from people who are, I'm starting to write my first book. I'm not quite sure how to go about it. I don't know how to get my ideas in order. So they're all coming down to the event so they can get a little bit of advice as well.
It's very intimidating. Very intimidating to start off.
It's intimidating until you come out and meet other authors, and then I think you realise that everybody's in the same boat. And I think, you know, we all have those fears, we all have those anxieties, and it's quite humanizing when you come out to these events. I remember I kind of bought out my first book in the midst of COVID, so I was a lockdown author, so I had no connection with real life authors until about 3 years after I'd started writing. And oh my God, I was terrified. The first event I went, I was like, oh, you can't say anything, don't speak, don't say anything, you'll embarrass yourself. But after a while, you just realise that everybody is thinking those thoughts. And if, you know, people didn't talk, it would just be a room of people sitting in silence because everyone's got too much anxiety.
I mean, talking about, getting started with your first novel, that's one of the panels that's going to be on there. So for anyone who is thinking about going, on the edge, you should definitely go, and, we'll give you some tips, give you some encouragement. If anyone listening to this, and is on the fence about should I start or not, I give you permission. Yes, you should just go and do it. I'm sure that the book you are going to write is one that I'm going to want to read. So just go and do it. You can reach out to me on social media as well and be like, I wrote my book because you said so, and now force me to read it, and that'll be fine too. We all want good books to read, and I'm sure you've all got one in you, several in fact. If most authors are anything to go by, so yeah, go do it, and then come along and find the secrets that we've all gleefully giving away at these panels.
I think that's actually one of the panels you're hosting as well, isn't it, Alex? I think they're getting started with novel writing.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, so I'm thinking of ways to make it most appealing to everybody. I remember it's a strange thing that stuck in my mind because it was just on Twitter that Jen Williams just posted this like image of what she like the ideal writer or something, and it's just a goblin under a blanket with like a pencil, and he's just written like the word bum on a paper on the page, and that really stuck in my mind for some reason. And I just also love the idea of like the Goblin Writers Club, so maybe we'll just start that and we can just all be goblin writers together and scribbling away. So don't be surprised if I've got, I don't know, a t-shirt with a goblin on it at the time or something.
I'm absolutely here for that. Yeah, I'm on board.
It seems like just getting that first word, that first sentence down on the page is the hardest part. Like just when you...
Yeah, and I've given it to you. Bums. There you go. Write bums down, and then it's no longer a blank page, and it's all up from there, right?
This is how all books will start from now on. We've decided this is the rule.
Yeah. I've changed the genre. Hopefully for the better. But yeah, it is. I think, yeah, like it's getting started is tough. And I think you can put a lot of pressure on it when you are just staring at that blank page and you think, and it's the gap between, well, when I listen to like cinema soundtracks and I imagine this story, it's really epic and amazing and I get goosebumps. But when I like write the story down, it's just, I don't have the words. And I think, I can't remember the quote exactly, but it's, there are lots of quotes about first drafts, but the first draft is you telling the story to yourself and like you're just shoveling sand into a sandbox to make castles with later. Everything can be improved on. You don't have to show anybody until you're ready. And like, if you look at some authors like social medias, they'll say things like, I've, finished this scene today and half of it is just like in all caps, something cool happens here. And then you move on. So, that's a viable first draft, is having a third of it just in caps to come back to. So yeah, try not to be nervous. You don't have to show anybody until you're ready. So
I really like that about shoveling sand into a box to make castles later. I think that's the perfect way to describe it.
I didn't realize I was going to pull that out of my brain, so I can't remember who said it, but definitely I won't take credit for it.
I think that's a Gaiman one, isn't it?
I wouldn't want to say in case I got it wrong, but
well, I might have just got it wrong, but it's fine. I'm used to that. So.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of resources on how to, a lot of stuff online about different ways you can go about writing. So I think it can feel like you're going about it the wrong way, but as long as it's working for you, I don't think there really is a wrong way. If you want to plan everything to a T, then go and do that. If you want to just start writing and then chip away at it later, go and do that. I mean, I like to plan stuff, because it feels like the most productive form of procrastination. But I know other people who like will write stuff and then they'll take out thousands of words afterwards, and both are viable. And although it seems like writing lots of stuff and then taking it out wouldn't be, would slow you down, they write a lot quicker than I do. So like my publication dates are like years apart, so I can't complain about the fact that they've sprinted ahead and done all this stuff. So just try and find a method that works for you. If you find an idea you're excited about as well, I think that's helpful. Like I I occasionally will just write down like tropes that I love, and then you sort of just start smashing them together. You're like, oh yeah, this is awesome because I love all these things, and then that just will carry you hopefully to that first beyond rather the first word, because obviously the first word is bums, but beyond that it will keep you going.
Bums, period. Okay, no.
There you go, and it's no longer a blank page. It's it's fine.
I feel like this is going to become the page chewing version of the dripping bucket, where now every book just has that in it at the beginning.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like I'm sort of obligated now to start a story with bums somehow. I'm gonna have to get there.
Yeah, you've backed yourself into a corner there.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Yeah, you'll be the bums guy from now on.
I'm sure there are worse things to be.
There are, yeah. Yes. But Holly, also there's sponsorship opportunities too for the event.
There is as well. We've had a really good response to. I put out a shout out on some social media spaces, just to ask people if they were interested and wanted to kind of support the event. There are sponsorship opportunities available for different panels. I believe we are now completely sold out on the featured sponsor slots for the panels. We do still have sponsor slots available for our workshops and interviews as well, or just if anyone just generally wants to kind of help us to, put the event on, make it the best that we can possibly make it. We have been really overwhelmed and really surprised by the number of people who have said, maybe they're not in a position to sponsor, but they want to help out by boosting us on social media or putting up posters or talking about it on podcasts. That's been amazing. Am I allowed to say, Steve, about...
Of course, yeah.
In that case, I will say I wasn't sure if we were making it official yet, but we are really pleased to have Page Chewing on board as one of our sponsors. Absolutely thrilled that Steve is supporting the event, getting behind it. Obviously, being not in the UK, Steve's not going to be able to actually come to the event, so we are hoping to reward his generosity with loads of really good content and videos and pictures of Alex teaching people how to write the word bum, because that's obviously going to be the highlight of the day. But yeah, no, we really appreciate it, Steve. And if I can ask a question for you as well, what does it kind of mean to you to be able to support events like this one?
Well, I think first, I think, it's nice to support our friends and people we know we've been in contact with and we're familiar with. And it's good to boost people that people we're friends with and we know and we've known I think we've known each other for, years now. But it's also because it's nice to just contribute to the community and people who are in that sphere. And I think it helps everyone. So I think having people who are willing to take the time to put something like this together, because it's a lot of work. I think it's fun to think about and it's fun to talk about, but when you actually get into it and think, okay, what do I have to do to make this happen? You realize there's a lot of steps between starting and actually the event actually happening. So it's nice to contribute and just to kind of put some wind in the sails, I guess you can say.
We absolutely appreciate it. And fingers crossed, some of the people that come to the event will be writing the books of tomorrow that you will be reading and reviewing on the site. So I'm hoping it all comes back full circle, because that's really what we want it to be.
I'm over the moon that you've had such a great response to it, because it's always nerve-wracking when you have an event like this and you're trying to get traction for it and you wonder, what if nobody cares? What happens then? So it's nice that you've had such a great response. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's a little bit shocking. I've had people saying that they're going to take time off work to come. I was like, what's that about? I'm absolutely thrilled that they are. Make a weekend of it. I was like, this is all getting quite exciting now. So it's, yeah, But the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see on the day if I am a nervous wreck or if it's all smooth sailing. We'll hope for the latter.
It could be both. It could be a nervous wreck, and it could all work out very well. I mean,
I can almost guarantee it will be both, Steve.
What are your thoughts on that, Alex? Are you nervous about it? Is it something that you're anticipating? Are you feeling anxious?
I've not really hosted a panel before, but I've so there may be some slight nerves with that. But I think more just it's really exciting. It's really exciting that everybody's really pulling together for it. With all these sponsorships, and I think especially hearing that everyone's kind of just reaching out and saying, what can I do? I'm going to take time off work for it. I mean, I'm going to probably make a weekend of it because it's not a huge drive for me, but that area of the country is really nice, and I'll just be probably chill out the day before with some nice dog walks or something. But I think as I said, it's going to be really exciting to see these to see authors that you kind of know and talk to online, and sort of only see at these kind of events, really, because that's the magnet that pulls people into the same space. So that's just excited to see them. And if I know we've obviously already talked about like the Ready Draft one, but I quite like doing stuff like that and just trying to encourage people. And so if we can make something where half of the people decide, actually I'm going to do that. I'm going to write my book, and then that time next year there's a load of people who finished a book and want to come, and I don't know if there's people who have the strength to put on another event, then they want to come and read it at the next event. I mean, that would be amazing, so I think just more excitement, but I'm less frazzled about it than Holly is at the moment, so I'm happy to do whatever I can to help, but certainly I'm fresh at it at the moment, so maybe less energy as it comes forward, and as she asks me to do more and more. But at the moment, pure excitement.
I was going to say, give it time. I haven't started putting the pressure on anyone yet, so everyone's still quite relaxed.
Exactly.
How much did your experience with the Kickstarter campaign help with this, Holly? Help with kind of organizing and getting everything together?
I think it helped massively in terms of just having the confidence to really try and go for something like this. I mean, I've done events for many years through my various works and jobs, so I'm quite regularly out doing like press coverage and media stuff, for different companies. I think I've done about 5 or 6 events in the last month alone. So, I mean, obviously I haven't organised those, but I go along and I kind of observe how they work and how, it's always interesting to see, because they're not necessarily writing events. It could be that they're a car show, or, it's a show about agricultural machinery. So it's a completely different world, but just taking those ideas and seeing what works and how they present it has kind of given me a little bit of sort of a boost, I think, in being able to put something like this on. So I think I contacted a couple of different venues, and 2 or 3 came back to me, and I knew kind of straight away that I wanted to go with the Nerdy Cafe, because not only did the books and the gaming go hand in hand, but also just the owners of the cafe and the team there, they are such an inclusive, welcoming, amazing, warm space that I felt would just really resonate with the writers and the audience that we wanted to get in. I went down and had a meeting with them, and I remember I walked in to see the manager, and I had like a notepad full of, notes and explanations and costings and spreadsheets and all these things that I kind of mapped out over like 2 days. And I sat down and we had a coffee, and I just said, I want to put on this event. I want to bring down a load of authors. We want to talk about books. We want to talk about games. We want to talk about cool stuff. And she just went, "We're in." And I said, "But I've got some notes. Do you want to see that?" She was like, "We're in. You don't need to convince us anymore." So I spent 2 days planning, but that was great because now I have all those plans already. So yeah, it's something that I'm very passionate about doing. I love to make these sorts of things happen. I get jokingly called the instigator in some of my writing groups. And I make a joke about how do I get myself into these things, but actually this is something I want to make happen. I want to make it happen for the community. I want to make it happen for other people. I want to make it happen for myself because it makes me happy to do this. So as stressful as it is, the joy that I get from it and from seeing other people get something from it is well worth any effort that it takes.
And for people who can't make it to the venue that day, how can they watch or listen, or even if it's live or after the fact?
So during the day, we're going to have a number of cameras set up. So we're going to have a couple of videographers there. So we will be recording all of the panels. We're not sure whether we're going to be able to record the workshops or not yet, just purely because of the space setup that we've got for them. But we will certainly be taking things like roving videos. There'll be pictures taken and shared on social media. And then hopefully post-event, we will update the website with the links for YouTube where people can go and kind of check out the different panels and things. All the tech stuff is definitely not my side of things. We are going to have people in who know a lot more about it than me. If it was me, it would just be dodgy camera phone videos. So yeah, we'll make some decisions on that, I think, in the next couple of weeks about how that's going to work.
It's exciting stuff.
It is. Yeah, so I think, I kind of want to keep talking about the event because I'm very excited about it, but I'm also aware that obviously there's only a limited time for us to chat. So I kind of thought we'd move on to the next bit of spotlighting, if that is okay with everyone, and talk about a couple of books maybe, because there are some very cool debut books coming out this year. And this year, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, seems to be the year of the booktubers and book bloggers releasing books. So obviously you've had Mushroom Blues has been everywhere. Adrian Gibson's book, I've heard nothing but good things about it. I feel like I don't even need to highlight this one because I haven't seen a single social media stream in probably about 3 months that hasn't been talking about Mushroom Blues. But I think we do need to highlight it and cover it because that cover, oh my God. That cover is just next level. Alex, have you had a chance to read it at all yet?
I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but yeah, I mean, it's just so well put together. And as you say, he's done such a good job of sort of getting the word out there, and everyone's like picked it up and absolutely loved it. So I know there's a soundtrack as well that was made for it as well. So I've got that queued up for when I managed to get to it. But I'm just really excited. I think it's a really interesting concept, and I also love the fact that Adrian's like got a copy of the book and he's mushroomed it. Like he's had it wrapped up with some mushroom spores, and he's been sharing this journey of just the mushroom slowly growing on a copy of the Mushroom Blues, which I love that. I think it's great.
I have to say as well, earlier on the forums, I think, Steve, there was kind of a conversation starting around, how do authors stand out? How can they, rise above kind of the noise of the crowd? And if there's any writers out there who want to know how to do it, go and look at what Adrian Gibson has done with Mushroom Blues, because that is a 101 in marketing. He has just done such an amazing job of not only promoting the book, but just doing something that is really different and really unique. Like Alex says, with the mushroom growing, getting the soundtrack made, top marks to him. It's pure genius.
And I think he's been a part of the community for a long time and sort of proven himself as a great fan of the genre and, champion of the genre. So I think everyone is very happy to, just at his success and just happy to be like, I'm going to pick that up because you've been, he's highlighted other authors for a long time. So I think just being a genuine member of the community is a great way to do that. And I'm, thrilled for him. It's so great. I'm hoping that didn't come off as like sarcastic with an English accent, because a genuine like joy is a hard thing to do in an English accent sometimes. But really, really pleased for him.
This is always the danger. No matter what we do, we always sound like supervillains.
Exactly.
That must be terrifying. I was just saying, that must be really terrifying as a reviewer or to put out your own book, to release your own book, because you've been critical for many years. And then you really, so that's kudos to them for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, there must be a sort of pressure on you, because obviously not only, like you say, have you been critical of other people's work, albeit constructively critical, but also because you have read so many books as well, it must be, quite overwhelming as an author as well to think, I've read all these books that I 5-starred, what if I put my book out and people don't 5-star it? What if I get, the critiques that I don't want? But, it's that's what we all have to go through. And I think as Adrian's proving, it's been well worth taking the risk and putting the book out there and getting the reaction that he has.
Definitely. I get the impression that there's he clearly has a great love of all things sport related, that it feels like one of, the moment where people say, write the book you want to read, it feels like he's definitely nailed that. Absolutely. Like this is what I wanted was something like this. And he's absolutely, smashed it.
Absolutely. Another one I wanted to kind of jump on as well is not yet been released, but I wanted to have a little chat about Daniel Kulbar. Hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Daniel, I apologise if I am pronouncing that wrong. He's actually working on a novella at the moment, which I was lucky enough to get an early copy of, so I was an alpha reader for it. This is I believe it's a prequel for his Nathaniel Withers series that he's working on. I have to say, absolutely blown away by it. I love me a good novella. I am 100% a short book person, so when he reached out and said that he'd got this book, was I interested? I said, yeah, no problem. I said, I'll grab a copy and I'll read it, thinking, probably going to take me a good 6 months, as it normally does with a book. And he sent it over and I was like, it's a novella, right, I'm going to open it straight away. And I think I read it in a day. I was on holiday in Brighton, chilling in the garden, and it was absolutely fantastic. It's military fantasy, I think is how he describes it. So obviously I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give too much away as it's not been released yet, but it's well worth keeping an eye on that. I would say if you are a fan of works, like I love Sean Crow's work, so his Valhalla Steel work in particular, it's a very different story to that, but it has that very similar vibe of, being part of a unit, kind of all the different weaponry that's going on and the fighting. And clearly I'm not very good at technical terms for military things, but it's got that vibe, and really looking forward to that one coming out.
Well, as long as, Daniel's good at the technical terms, then I think, that's
He
what
is.
you need to read the book for.
Read the book so that Daniel can explain what I've just tried to explain much better. How about you, Alex? Have you had any good reads recently, or is there anything you're particularly looking forward to?
I've just recently finished the erstwhile Tyler Kyle, which is by Steve Hugh Westenra. It's one of the Spiff Bow entries this year, and that was really good. It's sort of a YouTuber goes in search of cryptid YouTube hunter channel, goes in search of cryptids on this very strange sort of small town, because he's been sent like a video of his mum who he thought was dead, just a kind of candid captured type video of her, and she's got a really strong voice with the character. It's a lot of sort of comedy horror, mystery vibes as well. One of those things that I don't want to give too much away either, especially because it's got this mystery vibes, but it's got the character's really like strong, got a very strong voice with the prose and everything. And it was definitely one of those ones that, well, I can't stop reading this chapter. I have to read the next chapter because I don't know what happens now. And it's, so that's a really great read. I would recommend going and checking that one out. Steve's also got like some kind of content warnings and stuff on the book, so if you are worried about that kind of thing, it's like, as I say, it's comedy horror, so I went into it being like, okay, it's going to be weird and probably gross at certain points, but he's got some links there. And then talking about things that are coming soon, and things you get lucky enough to read early with this. So that with this kind of, being a writer and having lots of writer friends, they show you their stuff early. So if anybody is still on the fence about writing stuff, you get early copies of books because your writer friends want you to read them. Is J.E. Hannaford. People might be familiar with her work. She did like a folklore type book with The Skin, and then like she's got an epic fantasy series. But she does very it's like an epic fantasy series with heart. But what she's got coming out soon is it's a novella again. So we're only giving you a short reading list for this this episode. You can go out and read this stuff really quickly, and it's called Unfamiliared. And basically, this it's almost like cozy fantasy, and her writing style really lends itself to that. With this village of witches who lose all their familiars and therefore their like magical abilities just before the village games are about to come through, and all the village games are based on like magic, so they suddenly have to figure out how to pretend they still have magic so they don't lose / make it seem like they can't protect the village anymore. And it's just a really fun, like I say, Jenny's stuff has always got like lots of heart with it. So go check that out as well if it sounds like something you're interested in. I'm trying to rack up my reading a bit more. I've got lots of ancient recommendations if you want stuff that was released a while ago. But I can recommend Holly's book as well. Mm-hmm. Not that there's any video on this, but I literally have it right here. The Hallows by H.L. Tinsley. Which I thought it's a really, really good book. It's the tagline on the front is ancient bloodlines, illicit substances, and floating nuns. And I don't think we need to go any further than that. If floating nuns hasn't got you involved already, then it's just again sort of this noir, urban fantasy noir with like this illicit sort of holy drug that allows certain people to kind of tap into these ancient bloodline powers. And I just thought it's a really interesting world. The characters are great, and it just, again, like this story that drags you forward. So I highly recommend that one as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that. I have the same thing that all authors get, is that I hate talking about my own books. So Alex has just done a great job of doing that for me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
It's all right. I'll invoice you for it later.
Perfect.
And since we're on the topic of novellas, our friend Thomas J. Jevons just released The Scroungers, his book just got released, I think, a few weeks ago. So it's only 134 pages, so it's another quick one.
Fabulous. And I'll say as well that giving Thomas a boost is something I'm very happy to do, because he is one of my players over on Dice Chewing, and he is a fantastic storyteller. So yeah, definitely well-deserved shout-out for him. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to be checking that out.
It's hard to keep up.
It is. It is. Up. So it looked like you'd frozen there for a minute, Steve. So I was having a technical panic then for a minute.
Oh, no, you're fine.
How about yourself? Have you got any reads coming up that you're particularly looking forward to, or anything that you've kind of had recently?
Gosh, I'm just trying to keep up with my existing reads. It's been my work life has been just insane, so I've been just trying to keep up. I did just finish Children of Time. I did finish that today, and of course I'm reading Holly's book. I'm reading Thomas's book. I'm reading Jenny's books. I'm listening to Susanna's book again, Susanna Imaginario. So yeah, I'm just trying to juggle as many reads as I can. It's been tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. I think I've looked on my Kindle and I've got about 4 ARC books from various authors. And not that anyone's pushing me to read them, but I do get messages occasionally where people, saying, oh, how are you getting on with it? Have you got any thoughts, any feedback? And I keep having to reply to people saying, you're coming to this event that I'm organising. This is why I'm not reading your book.
Yeah, it got to the point where I had to take a break from looking at new releases, because especially in the indie community, because there's just so many and they all look great. So it's hard to, it's too tempting. I just had to stop. I had to take a break and catch up with my backlog.
And especially around sort of this time of year, when you've got like Spiffbo's coming out, the Mark Lawrence competition, the self-published fantasy blog off. So you get suddenly, on like the 1st of June, there's a list of 300 books that kind of all look great. And, I surely can't afford to buy all of these books and read them. And yet somehow a lot of them find their way onto my Kindle.
Happens every year. TBR Con as well. every year I say to myself, I'm not going to get, 10 million different books from 10 million different authors that are going to sit on my Kindle on my shelf and never get read. But then, I do. I can't help myself.
I think a well-stocked library and Kindle is a very good thing, because it just means you can, like a wine cellar, rather than a list of things that you should be doing. It's more of a, well, actually, I'm really in the mood for this, and luckily, I've been stockpiling them for 6 years, so I've got many options to choose from. The only time I tend to try and let myself feel guilty about having too many books is when I think I can't fit another bookcase in this house. I can't do it.
This is the joy of the Kindle.
Exactly. I know, again, like, you can see my camera is just pointing towards the tidy shelf. What you can't see is the pile of books on the floor in the other angle, the other side of the room.
Yeah, we actually have a chest of drawers that are designed for clothes, however, only contain books.
As it should be.
So I have to ask both of you a question. Am I the only one here that's gone to purchase a book that they thought looked interesting to find that they already ordered it or they already bought it? It's like, you purchased this book on such and such day. It's like, oh, I forgot about that.
I think I've nearly done that. I've looked at a book on the Amazon store. I thought, oh, this, I'm sure have I bought this before? And then it turned and then it's, oh yes, no, that was on sale last year and I did buy it. So yeah, I've sympathized with that completely.
I don't think I've ever done it accidentally. I've certainly, on a few occasions, I've had a book on Kindle and I've then bought either the hardback or I bought the paperback at a later date, just purely because I think the cover looks nice on the shelf. I think we're all probably a little guilty of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've also been guilty of that. I might, get an ebook if they're doing a sale, and then find that, actually I quite fancy it as an audiobook or something like that, and listen to it on the dog walks or something.
Speaking of Spiffbo, I think it's just amazing that it's still is as smooth at it. I mean, that to have so many people involved and for it to be such a huge event, it's amazing that it's gone as well as it has. I mean, it's for it to work as smoothly as it, at least from the outside, but to have so many people involved, so many authors, so many reviewers, it's amazing what they've been able to do with that.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting to see the way that they changed it up as well this year, with the entry being through a pool rather than, just kind of the first 300 that were quickest off the mark. I think that was a really good way of changing things up, leveling the playing field, and just kind of showing that, the competition is evolving. It's listening to, what people want from it. Mark is really responsive and really kind of actively involved. He's not just a face, talking about doing something for the community. It's been going for 10 years now, I think, something like that. Still going with the same kind of core person behind it. That's, it's impressive.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, switching to the lottery, I think was a really good idea, because even with every year before now, it's been first come, first served. And what was it last year? All the slots went in 41 minutes. And I entered a few years ago with my first book, and that went in 3 hours as well. So it was just, I dread to think how quickly it would have gone without the lottery. And it's just nice that it's then been able to open up for authors who were in time zones where it's 4 a.m. and they wouldn't have to set an alarm for 3:30. So it's nice that even though it's still going and still working really smoothly, it's still really trying to be as inclusive as possible, make sure that everyone gets a fair shot at, lifting everybody up.
Did I freeze again?
I feel like I've got to, the problem is I've got to the end of my list of things that I wrote now. So I feel like I should have written a few more things down, because now I'm trying desperately to think of stuff that I wanted to highlight, but my brain's gone blank.
Well, you've been busy today, so it's understandable. You've been, busy with the event all day today. But I was wondering, for both of you, was there a book that you read recently that really surprised you that you wanted to mention, that just kind of came out of nowhere?
Oh, I'm going to have to think now about what I've read recently.
Yeah, I've got a little book spreadsheet. I'll see what was on it.
That's extremely organised.
I mean, I didn't say I was up to date. I've just got most of the books that I've read recently. it's not like crazy recent for me, but The Drowned Kingdom by P.L. Stewart.
Yes.
Not that I was expecting it to like not me to not enjoy it, but I think I was surprised at how the storytelling seemed to feel quite pacey, but also at the same time like slow and deliberate, but like in a good way. In that you've got all this information and world building. I did, made a few posts about it at the time, but yeah, that I was just really that surprised me in how he managed to make it. P.L. Stewart managed to make that book move quickly and yet really feel deep at the same time, because I think a lot of the time if a book moves quickly, or sometimes when a book moves quickly, you have to sacrifice some of that, and yet The Drowned Kingdom was managed to feel both deep and swift at the same time, so I was very impressed by that.
Yeah, I'm a huge PL fan. Absolutely love his series. I'm trying to think now if there's anything that I can mention. Thing is I've already mentioned Daniel's book, which is probably the one that, not that it surprised me, but just because it was something that was a little bit outside of what I would normally go for. So I don't normally go, I tend to go towards like the Grim Dark, the Gas Lamp, probably comes as no surprise. So, something that's, reasonably kind of modern style military fantasy wouldn't be my go-to. So it was really nice to enjoy that and really get into it. But in terms of other things that I've been reading, I've got an early copy of Tim Hardy's next book in his Brotherhood of the Eagle series, which is the concluding story. So that's incredibly exciting because I've been a huge fan of that series since it began. And also to see how, I think Tim at this point has got about 200 active characters, to see how he's going to tie all the loose threads together before the end of the book is going to be very exciting. I'm about 35% in at the moment. So I'm just kind of in the thick of the battles and the fighting, and it's all getting very bloody and gory. And I haven't really been reading much else other than I'm still reading Les Miserables. I can't say Les Mis, we'll call it that, because I can't do a French accent. I've been reading this it will be a year in September, and I'm about halfway through now. I mean, this book,
wow.
I could kill someone with this book. It's huge, but it's fantastic. Really loving it.
I guess I'll go off a little bit different, but I think I recently read Somna. It's a graphic novel by Becky Cloonan and Tula Lotay. It's a horror folk tale that just blew me away. It's published by Distillery, and it's creator owned, so kind of the indie version of of comics, but it is a fantastic story. So it's just beautiful artwork, great story, very creepy, very it's not something you want to be reading on public transport, but because it is a little spicy, but just a fantastic book for those of you who are looking for a picture book to read.
That's cool. On the kind of the whole graphic novel side of things as well, we've actually got a really amazing graphic novelist, artist, comic creator. They work under the name of Never City Creations. They're going to be coming along to the event as well. But they do some really cool artwork, some really cool comics. So there's one which is based on the story of the Matchbox Girl, which is kind of very dark, very like an urbanized. Is that a word? Urbanized? It is now.
I think so.
Yeah. So it's kind of a grim urban version of that. There's one which it's all kind of very horror / future punk. There's lots of robotics and animatronics going on. Artwork's fantastic, so it's well worth checking them out. And obviously they will be there at the event as well, showcasing kind of pictures, posters, all the cool things that they do.
Nice. A wide variety of creators that will be there.
Yes. Yeah, we're trying to tick all the boxes and make sure everyone's got something there that they'll want to see and that they'll enjoy.
Very nice. I feel like we should, Alex. I haven't heard anything about your work. If you want to tell us about your work and why Norse? What is it about Norse that?
I mean, that's a good question. I think who doesn't love Norway? Like looking at that Scandinavia. So I mean, not as I said, beautiful part of the world, and I feel like it's very epic adventure sort of setting. Really, it was just almost a strange thing that my two books are one's called Windborn, all one word, and Trollgrave, which came out last month, which is again all one word. And they're both standalone, so you can, if Trollgrave is in KU, so if you want to just nab a few pages and test it out, you can do that without having to have read the first one. But I remember I had sort of a couple of ideas sort of floating around in the back of my mind as I came to the idea for Windborn, and they sort of smashed themselves together. And one of them was like resurrected warriors with the demon powers or something. And then I don't know what it was, but then thinking of the Northern Lights and Shield Maidens, so that's where the idea of in the setting there are Windborn warriors who are resurrected and essentially given superpowers and twisted by these entities called the Winds, and they are sort of trapped inside the Northern Lights, almost like a Tartarus kind of thing, as they lost the God War in mythology. So the first book follows the protagonist is Edda, and she becomes Windborn fairly swiftly in the story, and then it's a revenge story from there. So I like to, my short pitch for that is a Viking superhero revenge story. And then with Trollgrave, we follow a slightly different side of it in that the main character is Alvir, and he is a god speaker, so a priest, and doesn't really trust Windborn because they are given superpowers and strength and healing and whatever else they might be given by the gods' ancient enemies that they've trapped as the Winds. So that was interesting to write from a different perspective. And they're quite different in that way that Edda is very much powered by rage throughout the entire thing, and Alvir is powered. It's more of a sort of mysterious. He has to go into the forest of broken trolls to find a missing god speaker, and obviously there's much more going on in the forest than that. So I think they're all right. I work quite hard on them. I think I think they do all right. I think please go check them out if it sounds interesting.
It's a quote for the front of the book there, isn't it? They're all right.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, not only in the same way do I not know how to talk about my own books, but I'm also British, so talking about anything that I do in a good way is tough. I managed to stop myself from like trying to market it in the lead up to in the lead up to the release by just saying, I think it's not terrible. Please give it a go. And just like quoting, like putting quotes up. Other people have got quotes from other authors and like reviewers. Oh, this is great. And I'm, thinking, well, I could probably put up, I'll get to it at some point, mum. I think maybe that's not the best marketing strategy, but it's all I had.
It's very relatable. I will say it's very relatable.
Exactly. I promise I am reading it. It's fine, mum. It's really fine.
You sold me, so yeah.
Good. Well, thank you. Yeah, I hope you enjoy them. If you give them a go.
I feel like I was born in the wrong country because I'm all the self-depreciating humor, the uncomfortable, don't like to be, to promote, and makes me really uncomfortable. I feel like I should have been born in the UK.
It's okay. I'll make you an honorary Brett. It's fine.
Yeah.
We can make it happen. We've got that level of power.
Yeah, I need a sponsor. I need some sponsors. Yeah, to make the move. But I have a long list of things to check out now.
Yeah, I've been scribbling notes as we've been going on.
Yeah.
It's one of those things as well. And the more you kind of think of things, the more you think, oh, I remember something else I saw, and then that kind of leads you down that rabbit hole. I mean, I'd probably lose half my day to just going down rabbit holes of finding different cool projects. And my husband he's terrible for, he'll come and he'll show me these random musicians that he's found that have got like, four followers, and they're in like Denmark, and it's just great to be able to chat a little bit about things people might not have seen or heard of.
I think that's part of the now that it's you can publish yourself, and everybody does it really well. You can definitely find a book that you kind of scratches whatever itch you have, but because there's so many, it can be difficult to find them. Just despite the fact that, the authors may be a lot better than we are at talking about their books, and actually are, sort of think, check it out. But there's just a lot of noise out there. So it's nice to, as you say, be able to lift up people and be like, well, this is really good. Actually, you should, really check that out. Like, if I can, shill another book, not of mine, so I'm going to talk about it quite enthusiastically. It's a book called King's Rise by Anne Mathias, and it's like a Arthurian police procedural urban fantasy. And I don't even know how, like, somebody retweeted it and it came across my timeline, and it has just like a Stonehenge motif on the sort of like monolith on the front cover. And I was like, yeah, that looks kind of, that's cool. I'm into that. And I've just been reading some other sort of urban fantasy set in the UK, and this is also set in the UK, like a small town on the southwest coast. And I was like, it just sort of hit that, I was craving a bit more of that. And I just, I don't know how many reviews it had at the time, certainly like 3 maybe, and I just absolutely loved it, and I tore through it in like 2 days, and it's quite a chunky book, and so I highly recommend that. It's like, say urban fantasy, police procedural, Arthurian, like overtones and sort of themes and aspects to it, and I think Anne's working doggedly on the second one, but she's a busy lady, so not quite yet. But yeah, I highly recommend that one as well. As you say, it's just rabbit holes, because you click on that and then it turns out that they've also recommended this, and then you're like, okay, well, I'll get that one too, and then it turns out I've already bought that one last year, but I didn't realise, and it snowballs
very quickly. Yeah.
It's another one for your list there, Steve. It's getting longer and longer.
My pen's running out of ink.
But yeah, I mean, I think having an opportunity like this to talk about these things is great, and I'm really happy and grateful, Steve, that you wanted to give this a go and try something out, and I think it's gone all right.
So yeah,
I haven't derailed it too much.
Not so great on my wallet, but otherwise, yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, sorry about
that. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're off to a good start, though.
I think so. We just need to get a definite decision on the name, I think. That's going to be the next step.
Sometimes it's the hardest part. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get I can ask Don to make us a logo for it, too.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be really cool. I can see the thought. Okay, the thought process has begun now. I'm going to have to make a list for... If we do another episode, I'm going to have to come with a slightly longer list next time of things. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's it can go on and on and on. Especially, you mentioned musicians. There's a ton of music out there that gets no attention at all, and all the great music is all on Bandcamp or other other sites that just doesn't get discovered, and because all the great music is hidden, you have to find it. And there's a ton of great music out there. It just takes time to find it. Is the hard part.
If I'm going to have to mention this now. I know we're probably getting a little bit close to wrapping up, but just because, as far as spotlighting artists who are kind of unknown goes, it's probably one of the biggest success stories I've seen in the last year or so. Have you guys heard of Ren?
It sounds familiar, I think.
Yeah, it's ringing a vague bell.
Yeah, so Ren is a musician he's actually from Brighton. I don't know if he was born there, but I know he kind of grew up there. And he was making music for years. I think he started when he was like 12, 13, something like that, really ridiculously young. And he'd kind of got a little bit of success locally. He got signed with a record label. I don't think it really worked out. So he kind of was flying under the radar. And I think it might have been about a year, maybe 2 years ago, he brought out this song called Hi Ren, which is, if you watch the video on YouTube, I mean, it was mind-blowing, this video. He's almost like a performance artist as well as a musician. So it's like a mix of kind of poetry and rap and music, and it's so hard to define what he does as an artist. But what's amazing is he brought out that particular single and it started getting traction on YouTube, and it started getting reactor videos reposting it, and it talks and touches on his kind of mental health and his journey with illness and being too sick to perform or socialise he was actually bedridden for, I think it was about 12 months of his life, where he literally couldn't get out of bed. So he was kind of just sat in his room creating music. And it's got to the point now where I think he is just smashing all these records. And he's been invited to Glastonbury, and he's been invited to all these festivals and offered record deals. And it's cool to see because he's still staying very true to his roots and staying true to who he is. I think he's currently in the US getting kind of medical treatment for his ongoing illnesses. But his fan base has just grown and grown. And, he's got kind of millions of followers now. So it just goes to show, I'm not saying that anything we speak about here is going to have 1 million followers tomorrow. I don't think that we're that influential quite yet, but it just goes to show that spotlighting these things, highlighting them, it can really help and lead to, people getting that success that they want.
Yeah, definitely.
That people finding that sort of things, all of a sudden it finds the audience and the people that it clicks with, and then you tell somebody else who will enjoy it, and it's like I was saying, well, we touched on with indie books already, with being able to sort of directly lift your creation to the people, the audiences that want it, rather than having to have a music record label nowadays, or a traditional publisher who might only be interested in things they know already sell, so that you can create something that is true to what you want to do and keep doing that, which is really nice.
Even if one person checks out one of these books, and if they read it and love it, they tell someone else, and it can kind of start the light the match, and it can take off.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for at the end of the day, is to try and make that happen.
Definitely, yeah.
That's a nice wholesome bit to end on, isn't it?
I think it is, yeah.
Make you feel warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good stuff. It's good to help. It's good to help other people and to promote people who are doing a good job.
Absolutely. I'll let you wrap up, Steve. You're much better at this than I am.
Oh yeah, I know it's late for both of you too. So, but where can people find you, Holly, and you, Alex?
I had to think then. My brain is so addled from social media. I had to think, who am I at this point? People can find me on Twitter, so it's at Holly Tinsley, and the E in Tinsley is a 3. I'm on Facebook. I have a website, www.hltinsley.co.uk, and I'm sure I'm on Instagram as well. All the usual places.
And Alex, where can people find you?
Much the same, different handle, obviously, but yeah, all the usual places. Alex S. Bradshaw on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and stuff, or alexsbradshaw.com. I'm usually lurking on one of those places at any given moment.
Yes, and you can find me on pagedoing.com or this podcast or any of the other ones I'm a part of. So the easiest way, I think, to find me is just pagedoing.com, and we have the blog on the front page, and join our forums. Come and say hello. We're a friendly bunch. Come and play games with us. Chat with us. We're always open to making new friends. So thanks again to Holly and Alex for doing this, and hope to do it again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.
Yeah, definitely. So hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for listening, and we will hopefully be back again soon.